Stay informed, Bahamas, stay ahead. It's your daily Bahamas headlines.
Good morning. These are your Tribune highlights for Monday, January 26th, 2026, brought to you by your daily Bahamas headlines, especially for people on the go and those who are visually impaired. Please don't forget to like, share, and follow our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp channels. Now to the news. The lead story today focuses on growing warnings from trade unions that the public health care system is approaching a breaking point. Union leaders say the country is talking about funding a new hospital, but not adequately addressing the critical shortage of frontline healthcare workers needed to operate it. They warn that persistent staff shortages, mounting overtime, burnout, and delayed payments are placing patient care at serious risk. Unions argue that without immediate investment in nurses, doctors, and support staff, any new hospital infrastructure will be meaningless. Several union representatives caution that the system is already under strain and could face partial collapse if staffing concerns are not urgently addressed. They are calling for meaningful dialogue and concrete action to stabilize the healthcare workforce before conditions worsen. Political developments also dominate today's front page. There is growing concern within the Free National Movement over what is being described as a legal cloud hanging over Long Island. The ongoing uncertainty surrounding legal matters tied to the current Member of Parliament has reportedly fueled anxiety among party supporters as the country edges closer to a general election. Party insiders fear the situation could weaken the FNM's footing in the constituency if left unresolved. In other political news, opposition leader Michael Pintard says Grand Bahama has become a symbol of stalled projects and unfulfilled promises. He argues that despite repeated announcements and grand plans, major initiatives on the island have failed to materialize at the pace residents were promised. Pintard says meaningful economic progress requires execution, not announcements, and insists that Grand Bahamians deserve real results. Meanwhile, first-time voters are expressing growing frustration and disengagement with the political process. Several young voters interviewed say they feel disconnected from political messaging and uncertain that their participation will bring meaningful change. Analysts warn that voter apathy among young Bahamians could significantly shape turnout in the next general election. Turning now to major economic and development stories from the front page of the business section. The fight over the former gin project in West Grand Bahama is intensifying. At the center of the dispute is a Bahamian-led group involved in a $26 million land deal with the government overseen by the treasurer. Questions are being raised ahead of an upcoming tax appeal hearing, particularly around unpaid real property taxes and competing ownership claims. Despite the legal wrangling, investors involved in the project say they see no major obstacles in securing government approvals. One Bahamian investor is projecting a $6.5 billion redevelopment that could generate thousands of jobs, positioning the former gin site as a major economic engine for Grand Bahama if the disputes are resolved. Supporters argue the development could transform the island's economy, while critics stress the importance of transparency, accountability, and ensuring the public interest is protected as negotiations continue. Now to today's editorial. The Tribune's editorial is headlined, "Talks about money for a new hospital, but not enough for essential staff." The editorial draws a sharp distinction between infrastructure spending and operational readiness. It argues that while discussions about building a new hospital continue, there is insufficient urgency around addressing chronic staffing shortages in the healthcare system. The editorial warns that bricks and mortar alone do not save lives, and that trained, supported healthcare professionals are the backbone of any functional medical facility. It calls on policymakers to prioritize workforce planning, retention, and fair compensation alongside capital projects. Turning to the letters to the editor, One letter titled PLP Backbenchers, Non-Existent in House of Assembly, criticizes the lack of visibility and participation of several government backbench members of Parliament. The writer argues that effective representation requires more than occupying a seat and calls for greater accountability, engagement, and contribution to national debate from those elected to serve. Another letter, Succession Planning and the Erosion of Merit-Based Promotion, raises concerns about career advancement within public institutions. The writer warns that when merit, experience, and competence are sidelined, morale suffers and institutional effectiveness declines. The letter calls for transparent succession planning and promotions based on performance rather than favoritism. Finally, the Tribune reminds readers that strong institutions, whether in healthcare, governance, or the economy, depend on planning, accountability, and people-centered leadership. That brings us to the end of today's Tribune highlights from your Daily Bahamas headlines. Enjoy your day, be blessed, and be a blessing.